So what I'm gonna do, Tony, because Gordon, I guess, was gonna try and make it. Zulfikar, I was just beeping. He's in Dubai. I'm gonna record this. If it's okay. I just hit record.
That's fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I figure it's more efficient than trying to move around time with you and get everybody on
Okay.
the phone.
Just let them listen to it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna fly through some of the questions because you and I've covered some of this and know a lot of what it is.
Yes.
Um, Let me go to a couple questions because they still don't know. So, so here's a basic one. Like some of these are basic, and I don't even know how you're structured. Some of this stuff I was just
Yeah.
structuring in the impact with my own. In a traditional venture fund, you've got a 2 and 20
Right.
relationship, right? Do you guys have a 2% and do you guys also have a carry, or do you just because
No,
you're
so
just
because
taking the
we're on the
funds in?
charitable side, yeah, great question. Because we're on the charitable side, we have an admin fee, which you know is 5%. And
Right.
on all new money in, we do not charge on carry, right? We don't charge on yield. We don't charge money management, right? We outsource money management.
Right.
So typically in a donor advised fund or in a charitable sort of investment vehicle, there is one fee, and that fee is admin fee.
So that part I understand. Let me bifurcate the question a little differently, right? Because the admin fees on the DA, that's on the donor advice fund, the special, right? Like we're the fiscal, sponsor underneath. You have your own pool of self-directed capital also that's different than the managed money. So on the self-directed
Yes,
side,
so those dollars will be considered unrestricted. There is
correct.
restricted dollars which belong into donor accounts or endowment accounts or charitable
And the
maintenance trust.
unrestricted is the ones that you have control of.
I have signature control over entirely.
Right. So the question is, do you have a carry on there, or is there a best practices or not? Or would it be weird? Because what I created was a structure as a 2%. So 2% operations fee, because either that or we have to raise money just for operations
Right.
and get donations, say, oh, this money's coming in just to run ops, or we do a 2% op. And then I was doing, instead of a 2 and 20, I did a 2, a 10% internal, and 90% of a redistribution. So I did a 2
Well,
10-90.
let me say it this way, because I think we're saying the same thing, but it just needs to be said. So our 5% is exclusive of a 2 and 20 relationship. We can have a 2 and 20 relationship in addition.
Right.
We already have that, right? So we're not money managers, Stephen. We outsource all that to someone else. So if we place capital and you charge us 2 and 20 on that capital, that's more than fair.
Okay. And so really on the unrestricted side, if we did something like a 2 10-90, that was because me, I like these phrases.
Yeah.
So if I'm like, hey, the dollars are coming into PCF, Peace Coin Foundation.
Yeah.
Its purpose is to invest those dollars for a return.
Yes.
And instead of doing a 2 and 20, it's a 2 10-90 where 90% is redistributed back out. And then we have a formula of how that money's redistributed.
Yeah. I just need you and the group to understand that the admin fee and the investment management fee are mutually exclusive. They're not
Right.
tied together. They're not the
Yeah,
same.
the admin side is yours
Yeah.
coming in.
Admin side is just scrape coming in. What happens after that, we get creative and imaginative.
Got it. Okay. And so on the admin fee, there is going to be a question because initially when I started this with Zulfikar and everything, it was going to be 20, 30, 50 million, 100. Now they're talking about, trying to be $1 billion fund.
That's fine.
So we may come back to you on some sort of scale on that 5% carry if it
Okay.
starts getting up to bigger numbers.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. It's a question that was asked within the group, and
That's fine.
that's why I didn't say, I said we may come back to you and I'll let you have
Yeah.
that conversation with somebody else. But I think they start doing the math. I've had the advisor funds like this, so I
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
the purpose. But
Yeah.
guys on the outside looking in, we've got a guy Gordon who comes out of the money side. So, but it may come back in conversation. I was just going to bring that up.
And here's the only reason. When you're in a charitable fund, the larger the assets and where they go, the larger the liability for me and our fund.
Okay.
Right. So we don't take that lightly. We take that very, very
Yeah,
seriously. So it's not a scaled down situation. The
it's a
more
scaled
that
up.
we take in, the more that others are looking at us going, all right, what are you guys up to? What are you
Got
guys
it.
doing? So,
Okay.
it's gotta be worth our while. Now, I'm always open to a conversation. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, I need you guys to understand that there's liability on our end because I'm signing off. Tony Suber is signing off on all this.
Got it. And that's why I said the conversation would have been around what and why, and that's an answer that they need to understand. On the fiscal sponsor side, all right, I understand the process on this, but do me a favor, explain, because there was a concern. Again, the main guy, Gordon's coming out of traditional finance, back UN. He's all concerned about operations and admin and all that. What I tried to explain, but I'd like you to explain, right? Because in my DAF fund here with Kurt and the guys, the Magic Johnson guys, I have to do a disbursement request. So the disbursement request comes in, the money's in my account, but
Right?
I do a disbursement request. The
Correct.
foundation makes the payment, they
Correct.
send the check, they do the admin,
Correct.
they do the 1099s, they do the
Correct.
work. Can you walk
Correct.
through that so he better
Yes.
understands that that's the purpose of
Yes.
you on the admin side, is you are the admin?
We are. So that's a great question. Although you articulated every step of the way nearly perfectly. So, but let me do it this way. The converse to not having an admin in place or a
'Cause we have to
fiscal
have it.
sponsor in place, you got to go through a year's worth of
Exactly.
filing here in the US, and then you may not even be approved.
And if you are, you still have to manage the account, manage the fund,
You got to
manage the
do
paperwork, manage the
you got to do
filing.
all those things that you just said. So
Correct.
whenever we serve that role, and hey, look, and I understand that from the outside looking in, once you start doing the numbers, you say, gosh, this is really, really expensive. It is, because we accept all of the liability for your activities. And yes, when the request is made, we look at the request, we do due diligence, we make sure that we go through KYC, AML, all those things, and we're holding the hands of all the parties that are moving backwards and forwards in terms of capital movement. And then yes, at the back end, we're responsible for all of the filings with the IRS. Now, the great part that I think in working with us versus running your own show is totally private. You have a complete veil of privacy, because when we report to the IRS, we report in an omnibus fashion, meaning we have 150 plus accounts or clients on our platform. When we report to the IRS, we report as one entity.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
everyone is rolled up into that nice, clean, ball of wax, so to say.
Yeah.
But independently and behind the scenes, it is a thing of beauty, right? You get to sort of, it's like running your own charity within our platform, but being public when you want to be, and very private when you want to be as well.
So let's go back again. I've got lists of questions in front of me, but I kind of want to stack this.
That's fine.
You and I spoke as well about that welcome letter, and you just said something in there where when a disbursement comes in, and again, the disbursement request in my other fund comes down, I have to do. First off, let's talk about the welcome letter, because the welcome letter said disbursements can't be made to individuals.
Right.
But when I spoke to you, the term disbursement in your world is a grant.
That's
There are
correct.
no limitations on the investment side. So
That's
walk through,
correct.
if you would, that word disbursement for a
I
moment.
will. Yeah, that's great. So in our world, and this is where the sort of traditional finance and charitable giving fund, just the vernacular just does not cross over
Right.
well, right? So if you're using your financial sort of right brain, we're sort of asking that you use your philanthropic left brain, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So when we say disbursement, we are only talking about grants to a 501c3, whether it's MRI, PRI, NGO, whatever that may be. When we use that word disbursement or distribution, we're only talking about grants. Now, we believe on our side that it's inferred. So we've failed to sort of understand that there are lots of right brain folks who say, you know what, this language means something different in my world.
Right.
Okay, great. I get that. So, and I'm not going to push back on that. I get that. And we're working with that on the back end to make sure that we can put out language that actually conveys and will be received the way it ought to be received from sort of right brain folks. So everything else would be
Hmm.
not a grant, right? So an investment in our world is really everything else. It can go to nonprofit, it can go to for-profit, it can be a bond, it can be artwork, it can be gold bars, gold in the ground. I mean, we've purchased so many things, cryptocurrency, right? It can be private equity, it can be,
Slow
startup,
down, slow
hedge
down,
fund.
Tony. So
Yeah,
to be clear, you just gave me a great list, and actually my left brain and right brain were crashing in like a crash of rhinos. You're on that list of assets. These aren't donation assets. These are investment assets that you've made as the fund. So there are no
yes,
limitations, right? These. So I just
yes,
want to be clear that those are
yes.
all. So keep going down the list. These are all things that you've invested
We've
in without
invested in.
limitation.
That's right. That's right. Now, I would also
Mm.
say that some of them uh, in kind have been donated as well. But we just choose to also buy these assets, whether it's parallel or with a completely different donor. We've purchased them. So if I think about some others to add to that list, oh gosh, mineral rights. We're going through a process right now of purchasing a Lambo just to raffle it. Right? You purchase a
I saw that.
Lambo
I
for,
saw your request. I'm at the
yeah,
Lambo guys on Thursday here in LA. I'll try and get you a good contact.
please, 250K or 300K. We raffle it for 2 million. It goes into our unrestricted so that we can use that for operations, right? That way we can try and bring down that 5%.
Right.
So it all works to a degree.
Okay, let's back up because you gave a little inside baseball, a
Yep,
little IBL, inside baseball language.
here you go.
RI and PRI,
Yes, MRI, mission related investment, and PRI, program related investment.
and the difference, distinction.
Well, really, very little or no distinction. I think the biggest thing that needs to be understood is that uh, PRI and MRI sit in between a grant and an investment, right? They give us those programs give us the ability to actually grant to a for-profit company that has a philanthropic or ESG or social impact agenda to be able to place capital with them, but call it a grant.
Got it. So let's walk through that for a moment because this is
Yeah,
part of Peace Coin Foundation. And again, I'll catch up on the structure because most of this I did with my, you know, investment hat capital, my
sure.
philanthropy hat, and then my fiscal sponsor because I played in all three. So I'm doing this.
Right.
What we structured is again, Tony, um put your unrestricted fund hat on, right? Not
Okay.
your DAF. These are your funds you can invest.
Yep.
So you can invest without the disbursements are pretty much without restriction except to individuals and things you have the limitations on. So let's say you make a disbursement,
Right.
or an investment if we were to collapse those words together. And that investment, I'm going to use easy numbers. You put $1 million into something,
Okay.
it gives you a return of $1
Okay.
million. I like small, easy numbers. So now there's $1 million back up at the foundation level in the unrestricted.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm doing out of there now is an allocation where, again, because we have the token side, so a portion of these proceeds are going probably into PII, which is the United Nations Peace Innovation Initiative. So a percent is going into that
Great.
initiative to support it. A
Great.
portion, I believe, might go into one of the other UN programs to support it.
Okay.
50% is staying within the fund to be recirculated and recycled into
Smart.
investments.
Yep. Love it.
And then 30% is going into the token buyback of the Peace Coin Foundation, the token foundation.
Perfect.
And then those tokens are returned in the foundation to then be recirculated for investment. So I'll still have to catch you
I
up,
love
but
it.
the way we structured the legal with the Peace Coin is the
Sure.
PCF is under you. Thank you again, the
Yep.
sponsor
Yep.
side.
Sure.
Then where I think we're landing is a Peace Coin token is a separate foundation under BAM, Bermuda Asset Management.
Okay. I love that.
All right. Now the foundation can invest, let's say there's $1 million project in Bangladesh. I'm going to come back to you on the percentage limitations because I want some clarity on that while we're in video. But let's say it's
Oh,
$1 million
yes.
project.
Okay.
800,000, 80% is picked up by the foundation and its capital partners.
Mhm.
And I say that clearly because there are some percentage limitations I want you to walk through. But for
That's
this
fine.
example, I ended up at, let's say it's 80%. You know, now you have 200,000 or 20% left in that local project in Bangladesh. I created a term called a LIFT, a local individual financial token, a LIFT.
Okay.
If the Peace Coin token is over here, anybody can buy the token to support missions for peace. If there's a local project, we allocate a token down where now the individual in Bangladesh that wants to support that farm and that project can buy the token. That money though, because the token foundation's also a foundation, that
Yes.
200,000 goes into the project as a donation or a grant. It doesn't go in as equity.
Okay.
So that's how that local company can show a structured investment, because the KYC happens over here on the exchange. So person has to
I got it.
KYC into the exchange.
Mhm.
But I had to figure that thread out, because if the token wasn't a foundation, then you couldn't show how 200,000 got into this
Correct.
investment vehicle.
I got it.
So now by separating it out, the token has no thread to equity. It's a donation.
Mhm.
The 80% is the equity. Then when that return comes in, 30% of the return goes over here to buy the token out of the market. And so
Right.
that's how I support the price, but separate the legal thread.
I got it.
You know,
I got it.
so that one's been, you know, super cool. We're pretty
Yep.
excited. People that be the Bermuda guys are just blown away. They're like, holy crap.
Good.
And tangentially, I talked to Manny Pacquiao, the Pacquiao Foundation, a few others. I think there's some other people that may look at a similar structure with you.
Okay.
And I know Kevin in Bermuda is doing something with you. But
Yes.
so let's go back now, if you would. There's $1 million project. Let's say the foundation wants to participate in that project and it's $1 million total, all in.
Mhm.
What are the limitations of that $1 million and why, percentage wise?
Yes. So I think you're talking about the 25%
The 25%,
equity.
yeah.
Yeah, the 25% equity stack hurdle. So the US tax law states that charities cannot purchase more than 25% of the equity cap stack.
Okay.
Just period, right? Doesn't matter if it's public, private, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So how do you then, uh-oh, we got a little freeze going on. Tony, tell me when you're back. Tony. There you go.
All right. So I
So you
was
were at
saying,
25% of the
yeah,
equity stack.
25% is the limit. That's an IRS tax code, US, nothing we can do about that, right?
Okay.
So that's just the equity cap stack. I'm not talking about bonds issued by the company. I'm not talking about a convertible note. I'm not talking about debt. I'm not talking about a loan or any of those things. Just equity and a
Just a
cap
straight
stack.
equity.
That's it.
Okay, so two questions there with my financial hat on. A convertible note could be something like a safe agreement, future equity.
Yes.
So if you're doing something convertible, what if that conversion happens at greater than 25%?
So we have the option to liquidate our conversion as long as we do not convert.
Explain that again.
Yeah. we have the ability to liquidate sell our paper is really what we
Okay.
could do, right? The goal is never to convert. So if there's a clause that allows us never to convert, we will exercise it never to convert. And maybe we turn it over into warrants or rights or something else like that. As long as we don't convert to the cap table, we're fine. And
Got it.
there's
Okay.
no language, right? There's no US law language that says we must convert.
Got it. Okay. So within that 25%, and this will be the convergence of two questions, I think. Again, I'm up at the self-directed funds, not the
I
DAF.
got you.
This is your capital.
Yep.
How do you do the due diligence? What's your process and structure? How do you work with other capital partners? If you identify something, you're like, hey, we love this project and it's $1 million, knowing you have a 25% limitation, walk and that's a lot of questions, but I think you can kind of
Sure.
stack through it.
I can.
Yeah. So how do you handle due diligence? What's your process? If you identify something that you like, how do you work with other financial partners?
Yeah. So usually we're not the syndicator. Usually we're called in as part of a syndication.
Yeah, thank you.
So
That's what I said. I said if
we
we're
don't
just a
lead.
tag, if we're a
We do
tag
not lead.
along, if we're a
That's
tag
it.
along in a fund of funds, we partner with other guys
That's
like
it.
you
That's
that
it.
call us and say, hey, we've
Yeah.
got this great project. We'd love for you to come in.
And here's the other piece. From a tag along perspective, 99.9% of our clients have already done due diligence. They've already performed it. They've already looked at what they want to do. So any event that we have truly unrestricted capital, we go through the same process. We have an attorney, we have an accountant, we have a team of people, we have Castle Hall who we can call on. There's a wide range of folks that we can call on, from investment managers all the way to due diligence experts who we can call on. It really depends on the amount of capital that we're outlaying and how well we know or don't know the GPs.
Okay, but for the most part, let's go through that structure. For the most part, you're a tag along with other SDG
We
and
are.
impact funds.
We are.
Can you just, I mean, I know that in my head. Can you just kind of walk through what that is and how it works with you? How'd you identify your partners?
Sure. So generally the partners, again, are coming to us. I apologize. My son's in the other room gaming. It's winter break for them.
Nice.
So I apologize. Generally, because we are tag along, a lot of the data is already in the data room by the time we get there, right? So our process is reviewing what's already there and making sure that we trust what we verify, right? But you're right. We don't lead that process at all, ever.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I thought. I mean, I want us to be decentralized. That's the third D. Again, some of the stuff I have to catch up on and share. So what we ended up with, Tony, I think is pretty cool. It's called 3Ds. So the first is to democratize the investment. So the token allows the local individual.
Sure.
Diversify, where that token holder is up at the parent level. So if that individual project goes under, they're actually getting, they're held at the top. It's like the difference between investing in McDonald's corporate or a single franchise. So the diversification for the token holder is up across all the projects. And then decentralize is just decentralizing out to, partner funds, finding target SDG impact funds,
right,
and partner and just being a tag along end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what else I've got in here. Hiring, fundraisers. This is an interesting one. And you mentioned like you've got an independent contractor or something. What do you, number one, what's the terminology you use? If you do you have other people who, let's not talk DAF recruiting. Let's talk, self-directed. Do you have promoters? Do you have anybody that potentially would go out and raise capital just for you at the, self-directed level? And if so, is there a best practices for that? Is there paperwork, and is there a compensation of some sort for those promoters to do direct dollars?
So the short answer is yes, we have those people. We've got 5 of those people right now. We actually just lost one out in California. He went to another fund. So we have 5 of those folks all around the globe that do that work. They're really biz dev, independent contractors. And we have a split off between a point and a point, between 1 and 2 points that we pay them of our 5%.
So you're not paying off top line, you're paying off of yours. Well,
No, it's gross.
right, but there's a distinction there. The 5% admins on a DAF. Let's say somebody's raising
No,
for
it's
you
everything.
direct.
But it's everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's everything. We don't treat the dollars differently, whether it's
Oh, I
because
see
in
what you're saying. You
unrestricted,
take, yeah,
we still have access to the capital, but we still pull out the admin and leave the other 95% for investment purposes.
I see what you're doing.
We don't just sit on that. We're not those kind of people.
Got it. So you're pulling $5 in, whether it's DAF or unrestricted. So if it's unrestricted, you're pulling 5, and then you're paying them points off the 5, or you're paying points off of gross.
Off of gross. So it's really, I mean, you can look at it this way. They're going to get 20 to 40%.
Got it. But if
of
a
that
guy
5%.
if a guy brings in $1 million, it's a point. It's 1%. If
Yeah,
they
it's 1
bring
or
in
2%.
10 million, if they bring
1
in
or 2%.
100,
Doesn't matter.
so it's 1 to 2 regardless. Okay, because we were looking at a Lehman scale or something where, because Zolfiker's got some people out of the UAE that want to do 2, 3, 400
Yeah.
million. And so we were actually looking at whether it's a Lehman scale where it's a little bit higher for smaller money in.
I mean, we can come up with a scale. That's
But it
not.
doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not. So here's. I
No,
gotta be
I'm not
careful.
asking you to change anything. Let me be clear. I'm not asking you to
For
change
you
anything.
guys.
I'm
Yeah.
asking for feedback for us. I
Yes.
can go straight best
Yes.
practices 1 to 2, or I can say,
Yeah.
hey, we'll be a little creative with an inverse Lehman where it might be, 5% up to $1 million, and then 3%, something that scales a little higher. But you're saying
Yeah.
you're 1 to 2%.
Yeah, we're
Off
1
of
to 2. How
top
you
period.
guys structure that on your side is up to you. We're gonna
Okay.
pay it out no matter what. And if you want to scale it up or scale it down, I'm indifferent to that. We're gonna charge 5. We're gonna pay out 1 to 2%, and we're done.
Got it. And so that's what I was asking, is there's not really a best practices or right or wrong. It's
No.
structuring something that makes
Sense for everybody
sense.
involved, right? We want to incentivize all of our help, all the folks
Okay.
who want to be in the sandbox with us, and go.
Got it. Let's see. Investment due diligence process. How does it get prepared and by whom? Governance generally, we already talked about that. Let me jump out here to another page and see if I can cover most of these. There's some questions coming up, Tony, about a Form 990. Let's see what the questions are. Description.
They're all on our website.
Yeah, so I think what some of the question was is A, about the 990, and B, whether or not we've got some license and liberty to use the language off of your website that you've already done and created.
Absolutely. Whenever a fund is created on our platform, whether it's Fiscal, DAF, CRT, it doesn't matter. You become a part of us, right? So we automatically give you the ability to act as if you were one of us, as if you are part of the whole. Now, anything you communicate with the public, we're going to ask, please let us see it first. We want to keep us all out of harm's way, but
Right.
Absolutely, use our language, use our logo, use our likeness, our name, all that.
Okay, so that's a question I'm going to ask now for clarity. And some of it would probably do anyway for benefit of resource. But if we have press or PR or public facing language,
okay,
does that A, have to be approved by you? B, I would love to share it with you to say, hey, here's how to tweak it, or this makes sense, or legally. Does it have to be shared with you for public
it
facing
doesn't have to
information?
be. I would just say, if you're going to put something out into public atmosphere, I can only help. I'm not going to hurt. the
That's why I said I
process.
I would love to
Yeah,
do it anyway. I just
yeah,
was looking for clarity because what we're finally trying to generate here, I've been pushing for, I think we're almost done, is I've got a one-page about the foundation,
perfect,
a one-page about
perfect.
the token structure, a one-page about PII, and that one pager is just sort of to say, here's about Peace Coin Foundation, here's the mission, here's the vision, and then here's
Mhm.
the disclaimer, that 501c3 disclaimer language that you provided, is what we put on there.
That's critical.
Uh,
Yeah,
and again, let me go back to that, and then there's probably one or two others, and I think we've
that's
covered a
fine.
lot. Again, some of the outside people looking in, when they looked at that language, again, because that word disbursement can't be made to individuals, that's just the word disbursement as a grant, not, there are no limitations on the investment side.
Yeah, let me give you the three sort of commandments,
Thank
right?
you.
The three commandments given to us by the IRS for public charities are this, and donor advised funds. You cannot grant to an individual, number
Mhm.
one. You cannot grant to a political organization, a PAC, or a political campaign.
Because that's a
That's
C4,
number
not a
two.
C3.
No C4s,
Yeah,
only C3s.
yeah.
All right. And number three, you cannot grant to a private foundation. However, a private foundation may grant to us and satisfy their annual minimum distribution.
Got it, which is why you were pushing at the end of the year for everybody to dump dollars to you.
Bingo.
That's why we were trying to get done at the end of the year saying, hey, let's, you know,
We're here.
yeah, we're here, get those dollars dumped
Yeah.
over.
So those
So,
are three commandments. Outside of that, we're sort of free to play around.
all right. And then speaking of dollars dumped over, again, once this is close, and I feel that I feel we're forward facing and ready with our
Sure.
website documentation. Still want, I'm just asking you on
Right.
camera, the opportunity to go back
Yeah.
and share Peace Coin with your existing, DAF
Yeah.
roster and,
It'll
and
be the
companies and
entire
say,
ecosystem. So if you look at what we've done with Acoin, with Philcoin, and even some others, we will respond, Stephen, in kind, right? We are going to meet energy with energy. If you
yeah,
want me to fly to Dubai or Egypt or Bermuda, man, I'm on the first thing smoking, right? I'm there with you side by
look
side.
at look at you, man. You pick all the boys. I was just with Rico in Dubai hanging out. Rico loves you. Akon's running around here in LA. Like we got the crossover. I just need to I need to bring your roster up. I was with the guys with Nelly the other day that are looking at
Oh
DAF
yeah,
stuff, but yeah,
we
Michael,
talked to
but
them too.
all right, let me see what I can do to row that over the line for you. So, all right, let me look at the last couple things, Tony, and
Okay,
I'll let you jump. If I didn't cover
all right,
some things, we may come back, but I think this is
that's fine.
it. Um, Again, a lot of these questions I'm looking at here now without trying to read through everything. Um, Knowing that we can pull information off the website that you've already vetted and just repurpose
Yes,
it, I think answers a lot of these other questions. Let's see, how do we structure process and procedures to conform to aspects of Form 990 reporting, fundraising documents, registered posting bond
not
disclosures?
your responsibility. We absorb
That
all that.
so that's there. That's where a lot of these questions were, and that's what I kept trying to articulate to get them to
That's our
understand. But
job.
just
That's why we
cover
get
that
paid.
again for me, and I think
Yeah.
cover that last part on forum and 990 and the admin and the benefit of being the fiscal sponsor, and then I think we're
Yes.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that portion is really our responsibility. Again, when we report on all the inflows and outflows, we're tracking a ledger down to the penny for all the activities. And when we report every year, because actually we're going through that reporting process right now for 2021, we submit that form. And if anyone wants to look at or scrutinize our 990s, they're all on our website for the world to inspect. But because of our transparency, because of our process and protocol, we have platinum status with Charity Navigator. You don't get that, right? You can't buy that. You get that because you've got really, really great best practices and internal auditing in place. So we take care of all that, and that's sort of part of the process. That's why we get paid an admin fee.
And you know what? I should have structured this like a podcast. So I'm going to reverse engineer rather than getting you on the phone again and a Zoom at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
I'm gonna chop this up into a podcast.
it's fine.
So let's end with this. This is more for you and I and forward facing and actually Gordon, the United Nations guys.
Yeah,
Talk to me if you would, Tony, a little bit on your background, how
sure,
what you were doing at Notre Dame, how you ended up
sure.
at SDG. Let's start there,
Yeah,
and then I want to end with the SDG vision. But talk to me about you and your background and the Notre Dame philanthropy side and all of that.
yeah, perfect. So I'll go back a little bit prior to Notre Dame and then fast
Yeah.
forward. So I'm a 97 Notre Dame grad out of Mendoza College of Business. So finance was my concentration. That was my degree. Left the university, started and sold two small successful businesses, one in marketing communications, the second one in the insurance business. While I was in the insurance business, I was actually called and recruited to work in the Notre Dame advancement office. So one of my early mentors was working in the Atlanta office at the time, which is where I live. He had been promoted to run the development office, right? So he actually called back and said, "Hey, I've been promoted, and I'm looking to backfill my role. Would you be interested?" Well, it's one of those roles where you don't apply, you get called to do the work,
Right,
right?
sure. You get
You get
recruited.
called into the inner sanctum.
Yeah, you get recruited. This is
You get recruited, right?
get
So
recruited.
after about 2 or 3 months of research and interviews and phone calls and good prayer, I decided to do it. So 2006 to 2011, I was on the Notre Dame development team. So I was a regional director calling on leadership and principal gifts, which is 100K to a million plus. Um, and I managed 306 families up and down the East Coast, from Atlanta up to Manhattan. And that job consists of a wide range of things, but we were not in that role, which I now find huge upside in terms of my delivery and my ability to do this work today. We were not minimized to just raising money for athletics or just raising money for the library or endowed chairs. Instead, you were just focused on your territory. However, you raise money for everything:
Wow.
endowed chairs, donor advised funds, planned gifts, uh, annuities, outright gifts, and restricted gifts. Everything was sort of on the table. So in learning all that, as well as illiquid assets. So in learning all that and the donor advised fund platform, I was able to take that, and when leaving the university in 2011, spent the next 2 years building the infrastructure that would be the donor advised fund that you now know today as the SDG Impact Fund.
What was
So
your interest, Tony? What was your interest in the SDG and the impact? Why did you pick this lane and this structure versus a different one?
so if you look at the landscape of charitable giving vehicles, I believe then and still believe today that this vehicle gave the greatest amount of flexibility to the donor and to the administrator, right? I was not going to go and create a university. That doesn't work for me, right? I don't want to be on a campus. It's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go create a private foundation because my family is not interested in being a part of that process. So the only thing that was left, or I didn't want to be a servicing public charity like a Red Cross, like a homeless shelter, and so on and so forth. I
Yeah.
wanted to help families, family offices, individuals, and companies manage their philanthropy. I wanted to be the guy that they sent through the door first, right? To make sure that they could help triage, do all the admin work, and take off of their shoulders all that back end stuff that they don't want to be doing, right? Filing 990s, keeping control of the ledger, making sure that compliance is in order. All the things that I learned when I was in my role at Notre Dame. So it was a natural progression. And I had one of my benefactors specifically, he'll remain nameless, but he came to me and said, "Look, Tony, I give the university about $1 million a year. I give the world 10 million. You ought to come manage our family's philanthropy, but you got to have your own vehicle in order through which you can do it. So it was either DAF or consultancy, but consultancy is not the same, right? Because you're not overseeing the assets, you're just sort of giving your opinion. I wanted to
Yeah,
oversee
you're
the actual
singing for
asset.
your supper.
That's right. That's right.
Huh. And so, well, you gave us the inside baseball again, so let's back up for a definition here because I still want to stay on the impact side. Explain
Sure.
DAF for people who don't know.
Sure. So DAF, acronym for Donor Advised Fund. Donor Advised Fund is simply a charitable giving vehicle that is a line item vehicle described by the IRS for helping individuals, families, and corporations manage their philanthropy. And it is a converse to starting a private foundation or a public charity. It's a charitable giving account, for lack of a better description.
Got it. And so let's wrap up with what was your interest specifically, right? So your donor said $1 million to help the university, 10 million to help the world. Help the world is a big, it's a big
Sure.
statement.
That's right.
How did you end up with SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals and impact? Like, even SDG and impact is finally converged together
Conversion.
10 years
That's
after I
right.
started jacking around with it. But
Sure.
what was
Sure.
your interest specifically in SDG and impact? And do you have any particular lanes in the SDG that you actually prefer?
Yeah. So let me answer the latter question first, because that lines up perfectly with what a donor advised fund is. So a donor advised fund needs to, by definition, be a macro approach, right? Because we have 150 plus clients, donor advised funds on our platform. They each come with their own agenda. So if we have one SDG that we're focusing on, take SDG 5, well, that means we can't work with all the other families who have an interest in 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, right? So our focus is the entire SDG platform, all 17.
All 17.
So we don't choose for our benefactors. They alert us and say, hey, here's my focus. And then we help them append what numbers make sense for their personal agenda.
Got it. And last question for you then on unrestricted dollars. These are your, not Tony Sooth, these are your SDG unrestricted, right. Tony, do you have one or two of the SDGs that are a personal preference for you, a personal passion or a personal interest out of those 17?
I would say 5 and 17. So 5 is gender equality.
Yeah.
And I've got 4 sisters, 2 daughters, and a wife. And I want equality among women and women efforts all over the planet. So yeah, I had a heart for number Perfect. 5. And number 17, I've been described all my life as a connector, right? 17 is all about partnerships, making sure that the left hand and the right hand in the same room, or not even in the same room, get to know each other and get to come together. There's a lot of capital around the world, Stephen, right?
Yeah.
We want to act as a united coupler for all that capital around the world to move and to do great things.
Yeah, and the phrase I have, and you and I, the first time we met, I told you my slide that I always did at the UN is awareness brings apathy. Actions bring achievements.
That's right.
And that's the difference with what you're doing. It's an action platform. It's about, investing and taking an action and making things grow. So this has been great. All right, Tony, I will let you run. I appreciate you covering a lot of ground. Like I said, it was easier for me to just record this. I am going to turn this into a podcast though, just to put it up. So when I have people interested and can share it, we don't have to get you back to go through a lot of this.
I'm happy to do it anytime. And actually, we're going to update our website, so we might have to converge on some of that too.
All right, you let me know. All right, buddy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, you brother.
All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.